בוא נעשה כי אין, לא יודע איפה.
לא יודע איפה זה בא.
Yeah, now it's recording.
להרשות לו גם להקליט?
אני לא מוצא. כל זה בסקיוריטי. Allow participants.
Elon, it's recording. Elon, it's recording.
Okay.
What is that? No, that's good. Amazon.
עם המצגת שלו. לא נעשה שתכף. אנחנו רוצים להתחיל בבקשה. רוצים להתחיל בבקשה.
No. Why is she doing that? I don't know.
Okay.
So you want to zoom in? They should.
Can you read this?
I'll go through it later.
You're fine. Let's finish the night. Welcome to the premiere book launch of Growing Up Tropper, a memoir in 4 voices. Very happy to have you, and happy to see all of you here tonight. Hear me? Go. Let's see. Do you hear me now better? In the back, do we hear? At home, do we hear? Yep. Sort of. I see Charlotte's giving us like a so-so expression. Okay? That one's mute. And everybody at home, if you're not, it's a good idea to mute so you won't disturb other people. At home, you can do what you want. So everybody, once again, welcome. I'm not going to talk now. I just want to give you an overview of what tonight's about so you know what to expect. And you stick around for the desserts at the end if you're here. We are going to have 4 speakers right now. They each will speak for 5 minutes apiece. Remind the speakers, 5 minutes apiece. Some of our speakers will be here in the room. Some of our speakers will be home on Zoom. So we're hopefully going to overcome any technological challenges that we face along the way. We do expect some, and hopefully we're doing okay. I think we already had one with, but now maybe we're doing better. After the 4 speakers, we will have a short audio-visual presentation, which we are not going to be able to do with share screen, but for those at home, we will face our screen so you can see the audio-visual presentation we have. And then we will have the authors share a few words after. The official part of that will be done, and that's the incentive to stick around. And then also we have to informally, if anyone in the audience or at home would like to share thoughts about the book, stories they liked, etc., they will be welcome to do so while having. So with that, as I said, I'm not talking. I just wanted to give you a sense of what it's about. We're going to kick it off right away. A little louder. Can you hear in the back? Not hearing you in the back. Okay. You're here in the back now. You're in the front, you saw. Need a mic. Do we hear in the back now? Okay, so we're going to go through each person here. I'm just going to tell the speakers already. You'll have to almost kiss the microphone for this to work. Right? So we will wipe it between each person because of COVID restrictions. So now I'm going to invite Miriam to come up, and she'll be our first speaker.
Alcina, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I was asked to share a few thoughts I had after reading the book, Growing Up Fast. So I'll talk about the first perspective I will talk about is the psychological one. When you read the book, you see that the big chief lost 3 wives, and both Bubby and Baby lost their parents at a very young age. They had a brother with a developmental delay, 2 unmarried sisters. Psychologists would meet them, who would definitely think the family quite post-traumatic. But when you read the book, you see they were really very mentally healthy. It was a very warm and happy, from my memories, loving atmosphere. Definitely not something you would think after reading the book. The second perspective I would want to talk about is the social. When Hannah got for a son, for Shmuel, she said, "Natata la'amatcha ma'anashim." Rashi brings the midrash that says that zera hanashim is zera hamufla ben hanashim. Oh, it should be someone that's not outstanding. He should be a normal person. And when you read the chapters that deal with the family business, you really feel it. No one was trying to be outstanding to run the business. You see, they all got along together, no fight. Word in Hebrew, I couldn't think of a good translation. Let's start again. You have a good translation to English? Okay. So this family is mamash that forget to each other. I couldn't think of a good translation. So, and the third perspective I would want to talk about is the religious one, of passing on the tradition of the family. Every time you get into a taxi in Israel, the taxi driver always tells you, Saba Sheli Haya Rav. In our family, we don't have a dynasty of rabbinical. But even though we don't, you can see that we really believe in keeping the mitzvot and continuing in a Jewish community, and it's very strong. I like to tell you about the chapter about Pesach, that on the one hand, it's very much passing on the tradition, but in a very happy and lovely atmosphere. So I was asked on behalf of the Israeli branch that really didn't grow up so close, and we had few visits abroad, but we definitely remember what the Israelis coming to visit us. We always looked forward to visit. Israeli and Rabbi came, there was always special food that we never ate. The filter fish, so that was the taste I remember. I also remember the songs they taught us, different tunes for Yek. I think was one of them. And the great sense of humor and a lot of festive. He was always busy going to help his brother or people around him. So we all feel very blessed to be part of this family. And we hope to continue in a happy, loving, caring for others, and passing on the tradition.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Now we're going to move to our next speaker. You here? Okay, good. Our next speaker is Hillel. Hillel will be joining us from, where are you, Hillel?
I'm in New Jersey.
Very good. And we now see you, you're up on our screen. And
Thank you, Amram. Amram, thank you very much for putting this together.
okay. Hillel, wait 1 second. Not everybody here knows who you are. I know it's shocking. This is Hillel Tropper. Hillel is Zali Tropper's second son.
First of all, Amram, thank you very much for putting this together. Sorry we can't be there, but we'll try to share a few words. I guess that my objective is to speak a little bit about the book, and not necessarily what I remember about Bubby and Zadie. Obviously, we all have different recollections of them, and I was probably the grandchild that was fortunate to have spent the most time with them, having spent years driving back and forth with them to work. However, despite having spent so much time with them, I found it fascinating in reading the book how little I really knew about their lives, other than the occasional story that they shared with me. When I first heard about the idea of the book, I rolled my eyes thinking it was just another one of Diddy's retirement ideas. But the truth of the matter is that I really, really found the book to be riveting. I mean, it was my wife loved it, all my kids did. And of course, I mean, I think the other three siblings, Danielle, Shuggy, and my father, are looking forward to some of the royalty checks today, which I don't believe they got any yet. Often when people talk about their parents and grandparents, they make them into these larger than life superhuman characters without any flaws. People that walk on water. And it's really hard to portray people as being normal human beings with their normal human flaws, yet at the same time to make you so proud and honored to be part of their family. And I think that the genuineness of the book is what made the book so special. You didn't get the feeling that you were being spoon-fed a sugar-coated version of their life. Bubby and Zadie weren't people that like talking about themselves or the many wonderful things that they have done. They weren't people that bragged about their accomplishments, their chesed, their selfless devotion to their family. It was always hard to picture that what they were like as young parents, bringing up their children. So in reading the book, I had some observations. Obviously, everyone that reads the book, there are different observations. But some of my observations were, first of all, despite the challenges that they had early on in their lives, whether it was financial, spiritual, family, extended family, health challenges, they always seem to have had a positive attitude. Somehow, after every chapter in the book, you could just picture Bubby and Zadie sitting there smiling, rolling with the punches. They just had an overall happiness to themselves. Another thing that it dawned upon me in reading the book is that the beautiful relationship that the siblings, which are our parents, have with each other, despite the different directions in life that they took and despite their geographical differences, is certainly something that could only have been ingrained to them from their childhood. And the way that Bubby and Zadie looked after and cared for their siblings certainly planted the roots for this, for the relationship that our parents have with their siblings. And another thing that dawned upon me is how different life was back then. Can I imagine a 5-year-old taking the train to school by himself? An 85-year-old man thinking that the fourth time is the charm? A 97-year-old man going on a business trip? And of course, everybody's favorite story in the book, which is the night after Bubby and Zadie's wedding. The stories in this book were a younger version of the grandparents that we knew as older people. Had there been some chapters that written by the grandchildren, we could undoubtedly have filled up our own volume. with remarkable stories of really two amazing people. Whether it was driving home from work when Zaidi couldn't see and Bubby would point out the red lights to him, or the custard donut that Zaidi smuggled into Bubby's hospital room against her doctor's wishes, which incidentally she died 2 days later. Or Zaidi's diet of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, salami, and a shot of whiskey in the morning, which took him to 101. Or Bubby's brutally honest, when she saw her newborn that didn't quite look as cute as the parents thought they were. So we certainly could have filled up our own volume had we written some chapters on this. But it really truly is an honor to be part of this family. And once again, I want to thank Dudi for leading the charge, and to the other 3 siblings for opening up a small window into our roots. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Hannah. As I don't know if I mentioned initially, but first 4 speakers are all children of the author. That was clear, maybe make that clear. So we heard from Miriam Tropper. Now we heard from Miriam Galdor, once Tropper. Now there's a new Miriam Tropper, not new anymore, but she's ours. And we heard from now Hillel. Now we're going to hear from Yisrael Saperstein, who is Shuki Tropper, Saperstein's son.
Good, you hear me? Better? Okay, in 5 minutes to talk about a book that covers 115 years. The many speakers here from the family, I'm probably the only one who didn't actually grow up tropper. At various times, I was told that I had a tropper build or a tropper digestive system. Quite grow up tropper. I definitely didn't get tropper hair, maybe for the premature gray. I read Growing Up Tropper as 2 sometimes parallel stories about the growth of a vibrant family and successful business. I already knew a fair amount of the family side, although there were quite a few details I'd never heard before, like the poverty in which the first generation of Troppers lived in the US, and the baseball that broke the shul window. And who would Uncle Daniel would possibly remember the details and the final score of the presumably very important basketball game between RJJ and MTA, and Rabbi Steinberg's role in all of that, and see fit to include all those details in the book. By the way, this is the same Uncle Daniel who, when my mother was at Camp Nara in the summer, would send her long, detailed letters with box scores and summaries of Cleveland Indians games. I'd like to focus on the thread in the book that deals with the business. Growing up as the son of a scientist, my connection to the business side of the family was always from the outside looking in. My main interaction with the business was on days when, for whatever reason, we didn't go to school, and we accompanied our mother to Central Notion in Long Island City and had the run of the warehouse. Probably the only time I was actually involved in an operational aspect of the business was when, I must have been around 12 or 13 at the time, some friends and I spent the day in Manhattan, and I was given an envelope by Uncle Goody to take from one office in Manhattan, I think it was Cranston, to another office. I don't think I was ever told exactly what was in that envelope. Over the years, my imagination has convinced me that it was a very large sum of cash. It was probably just an invoice. For the most part, the business is really just a peripheral part of my life. I do, however, remember once discussing with my father what Zaidi and Uncle Goody and Uncle Sally did all day, and what was so hard about it. And I remember my father impressing on me the amount of stress involved in running the business. Growing up Tropper really drives home how complicated, risky, and just plain gutsy each of the major stages of the expansion of the business really were. It began in around 1947 when Zaidi, after consulting extensively with Bucky, decided to go out on his own in the face of the constant fear that his former employer, larger competitors in the industry, might in some way cut his legs out from under him. It took a while, but eventually the business became profitable and was able to hire its first employee who wasn't one of the tropper boys who contributed to this book. Now, these may sound like the usual risks taken by entrepreneurs building a business from scratch. That includes opening credit lines with banks. But the book then goes on to describe how the business is taken to the next level. Today, many of us take the Far East for granted, and we treat it like a New York-Boston commute. In the mid-1960s, World War II was still a fresh memory. Japan, which has been one of the prime belligerents of the war, was in many ways a primitive country, at least in the eyes of a visitor from the West. Traveling there took forever, and the people spoke less English than they do nowadays. It was very hard to get around and to find what you were looking for. In short, it was a very tough place for a foreign businessman. But a willingness to take on these challenges that some Uncle Billy possessed, and opening the way for collaboration with the Far East, he paved the way for the company. The book describes all of this in detail, and this is probably the biggest eye-opener for me in it. I always felt that people can be divided into two groups, those who served in the military and those who haven't. The point is that if you haven't served, you really have no idea what military life is like. I think my biggest takeaway from the business side of growing up Tropper, which doesn't really devote all that many pages to the business, is that there are two kinds of people, those who run their own business and those who haven't. I was never closely involved with the business, but I think I speak on behalf of all the cousins who also weren't involved with it, that the business was always a part of who we were and enriched our lives in many, many ways, both literally and figuratively. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Now the fourth speaker, the last speaker of the second generation, is Jonathan Tropper. He's my brother. And can we hear you, Yo? Are you?
Yeah, I hear you. Do
Great.
you hear me?
Please, Yo.
Right. So none of us really got to consult with each other what we were going to talk about. And so I apologize. Yisrael, I heard most of what you said. And I apologize if some of mine steps on yours. But I actually wanted to take a minute to talk about the business from a different angle. In reading the book, one of the stories which I had been told before it was in the book was how when my father went into the business, basically, you know, as soon as he got in there, Zaidi pretty much handed him the keys and said, you know, do what you're going to do with it, and really let him put his own personal mark on the business and let him kind of, he didn't keep him under his thumb, basically. And so my impression of the business Central Notion or Coda as it became is less about what it is and more about what it isn't. There are three quick moments in my life. The first was I graduated college. I had absolutely no interest in going into the business. I went into the very exciting world of advertising. And after about 2 years of making almost no money and working around the clock, I sat down with my dad and I said, I don't know what to do. This is not working for me. And I was invited in to the business, to a specific area of the business, which then ended up becoming my life for the next 10 years. The second thing that happened was 10 years later, I was ready to leave the business and I wanted to try to make a living as a writer, but I wasn't quite ready to make a living as a writer yet. And my dad and Zali sat down with me and worked out a way for us to unload the business and for them to give me a little bit of a financial cushion so I could jump off and try to make a career as a writer, which is probably also indicative of how much they really wanted me in the business. I may be the only person who was paid to leave, but in the family. And then long after I had left the business, about 10 years ago, I had a few years of some financial difficulties. And during that time, Baruch really became my best friend. The business basically helped me out for about 2 years, giving me a small revolving line of credit. Sometimes it wasn't so small, while I kind of put myself back together financially. So, to me, what my impression of the business as somebody who grew up with a very close view of it and who worked inside it for 10 years, what makes it so special is the fact that, unlike a lot of other family businesses that I've borne witness to, it is not a string attached to the children. It's not a string attached to the next generation. No one is pressed to go into the business. I get asked a lot if my dad was disappointed that I didn't go into the business, and that Amram didn't go into the business, and I really don't believe he is. We were never pressured to go into the business, but we always knew we were welcome to try if the moment was right. And at the same time, the business stood there as a kind of weird little safety net that was almost like the embodiment of Zaidi and my father and Zali, that, as you went through life, there would be moments where you might need someone to lean on. And in addition to our family, there was this business that we kind of just knew had our backs. And so I think it's a major accomplishment that's not really spoken about in the book, that this business has sustained, a number of families, but more than that, it's never become anything but a positive in everybody's life. There's never been a fight over the business. There's never been an argument. There's never been a feud. And there's never been father, son, or, brother, sister, brother arguments over it. I think it's all been handled in a way where it's only ever a positive. And I think that goes all the way back to when my father joined the business and Zaidi handed him the keys and said, turn this into what you're going to turn it into. And, I think Zaidi's vision of it was something that is in service of the family as opposed to a means of controlling the family. And I've always felt very, as somebody who's really not interested in business, I've always felt really strong feelings towards the business, not only because of how it was personally so good to me, but also just how it sort of exists in our family as almost another member of the family and never a negative. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. We're going to take a moment now to take a break from our speakers to the audio visual. For those of you at home, not home, you want to share screen.
No, why not?
You can share screen from there. Oh, maybe we'll try to share screen also.
Let's try.
We're going to give share screen a try. After the audio visual presentation, we will be continuing with a few more.
Thank you. Wait. Oh, I just do the chef sound.
I went to camp. That's summer. the best thing. Of course, we didn't know at that swimming was the best thing in the world.
That's how you became a swimmer?
That's how we used to go to camp and swim. It was like swimming counseling. That we did very well in that respect. The best exercise in the world. And that's where I used to come to see me.
Visit you as your swimming counselor.
When I was from Japan, since I went every year from the settlement. Because there were grammatical mountains. Very odd in New York. It's very, very nice. I used to live camp. I went to all that dream camp. I used to love this thing. Then we got engaged. I was at the dad, that's what camp wasn't the China Shabbos. But we never ate place. But it wasn't the Sabbath the charity. So I told my head counselor that I won't be coming back because I was going to become China Shabbos. And she's who he engaged to. This is my brother. She died. She knew him as my brother. I'm sorry, I don't get you, my brother. It's very funny, I mean.
My mother passed away half a year later. My mother passed away. I had to replace her in my father's store. I had married her. Which my mother was, because she passed away suddenly. Passed away in a period of 3 days. I worked with my dad for a little while, and naturally we couldn't get along very well because our customs were different. They were Polish customs, and I didn't understand them. Anyway, the upshot is, I made one mistake with a woman. My father got excited, and he said, I think it's about time you get out of this business. Well, I we started doing arguing too much. I went to
That was a bakery? That was
a mission bakery.
Mission bakery.
I went to the Seven Alliance. It was a Mr. Rosenberg at that time. I walked in, I asked him if there's any chocolate available. He says, there isn't any at the present time, but the maid comes along during the week.
What's the name of this place that you went to?
Seven Alliance. So it's a show shop.
Show shop.
If you job for people in show shop. So I went to Seven Alliance and I left my name there. I went back to help my dad. I was working there for a week or two. All of a sudden, my dad gets a call. And telling me, Amy, Mr. Rosenberg, I'm taking her. I said, he goes, yes. So I call him up and says, I'd like to see, I got something for you to take a chance out for a job. Good, so I went to him. Got the address. I sent him to A Myers and Friends. A Myers.
A Myers, right.
That was on 25th Street. After I went for the job, I come up there. Mr. Myers looked at me and said, hey, young kid, you're wearing knickers. And they weren't even crowds, I was wearing knickers with my own stockings. I didn't know any better because I had no brother, I was the oldest. I was the arm shot brothers. Looked at me again. Said, I don't think you're even fit for a job because this is our boy. So I'm telling you, give me a chance. 1 week or 2 weeks, see, if I don't finish the program, you can drop me. I'm not so he says, we're getting references in the Harlem school. Just come out of school. I said, what school did you go to? I said, Robert Jacob Joseph. You come from Robert Jacob Joseph School. Then you're entitled to a chance. I give you for 2 weeks to try it out. See how you make out. If you like it, I like it. So I said 2 weeks, from 2 weeks out to 4 weeks, 4 weeks to a year, and ended up to 20 years. I still
you started the real courtship?
The little culture we saw, a little by a year before.
Was that kept quiet? Oh, yeah. They had a nice year, I think.
But they had an idea, and some of the parents had an idea. And, I'm sure we don't touch each other.
My mother died in December by accident. It was right over my friend. But I told her at that time that I was going to have to pay. So she never saw us get married, but she knew all. We were married in much longer. I bet. What's his name?
Used to each other.
Used to each
What do
other.
you call it, used to each other?
We couldn't have an Arcadian affair because I was a morning vet. So we had a cancer. And we had the choir.
And the sandwiches?
Sandwiches. Go-birds.
So,
Very nice red sandwiches. I didn't. Coleslaw, potato salad, soda.
And after the wedding,
Yeah, that's the interesting part.
where'd you go?
After it was a 3 1, so we went home. We went to Bedford. So we went home to Bedford and got home about 4 o'clock. I went in with the girls, he went in with the boys. The next
I
morning,
know you.
now get it, the next morning, my father was in Spain. It was strange. So that evening, he gave us his bedroom. I remember that evening with the boys. And we giggled all night long. It was very funny. The next day, we went to the business. So for 50 years, they played cards. The same game.
Used to play cards.
Very small amounts.
Small amount, maybe $10, $15 a night, you make, or you lose a night.
One night you won, one night you lost.
Now
Well,
we
that's all. We're all in
all the big group, 15 boys. We used to come to 5. We would sit down on the game, play. Now, if I would tell you, we start playing, and sometimes you throw the wrong card, they start doing
Stop doing. Carnegie.
You don't know how to play. Who fills that card? But we don't care. They insult us, everything. It's not Carnegie, you know what Carnegie means? You don't know how to play.
At the end of the evening.
That evening, friends again, we walk out. We have coffee, cake. The next Sunday night we start again.
Which was very
It wasn't,
good.
we didn't go home with agreements, like they go sometimes, the same people have card games. I don't want to play with that game.
You never played big, you played small.
All right, but that is, but you know,
No one felt they were lost.
yeah, what's the principle? I'm
The
not,
principle was it.
principle, when you go to some card game,
When we first started John Eliezer, we used to do open mailing from the house. And once in a while, all these kids who have no television, they'd come up. They would watch television. And when I was filling envelopes, mailing the envelopes out, and then they helped me. So I remember Arya Emotion used to sit in the kitchen with me. They put the labels of the name on the envelopes and they'd go, Moshe, like 5 minutes. Got tired and went to watch television. Arya was about 6 years old. He sat with me, putting the labels on the envelopes. One day he says to me, Bobby, do you get paid for this? I said, no, I don't get paid. He said, what do you do with it? I says, I'm doing it to help the poor people in Israel. We try and make a good organization so we can send them money for food and clothing. And he said, so long. He says, Bobby, you're going to get paid. I says, how? Hashem's going to pay you.
you're my first responsibility. Wonderful children. Time they children girls they made a good spouse.
We're walking in the choices they made.
We were fortunate that
Very
they
good choice.
choices which we were happy with them. Time we were happy with their
The grandchildren, the grades.
children, great-grandchildren. And I think this is a honorable, still have one of the richest people. $100 and cents, which can be paid off in dollars and cents. You can pay that. That's okay, but this is really for a good legacy. This is our children, great-grandchildren. I'm happy with it. Modestly, I'm gonna polish. This is my polish.
So you had a house.
Huh? What?
The queen and the king and the queen such a
That
palace.
was the home.
The home is your palace.
That's what I'm talking about, home.
Right?
footnotes and thanks regarding the presentation you just saw. These skills were put together in a presentation that Alicia made for Levy and Ziggy's 50th anniversary. We're wondering also why the pictures ended at a certain point. Maybe have children or anyone beyond somewhere in the 1989. The reason is because that was Alicia. We used Alicia's presentation. Thank you very much to Alicia. We did speed it up a bit, change the music, but that was Alicia's work. A lot of work went into that. So we are very appreciative for that. The video parts that you saw were varying. Sorry, but that's also from that was from an interview which we did in 1996. And sorry for the poor quality. Didn't forget some of the worst parts, which were even poorer quality than the Jewish. So those are the parts. Once again, thank you very much. So now, moving on to the authors themselves. So first, pleasure to invite.
Can you hear me? About 2 years ago, when Duddy told Zali, Neil, and me, and our spouses, that he was planning to write a memoir for the benefit of his grandchildren who are asking him questions about growing up in ancient America. I thought, nice idea to do at this point of life. Now let's see where it goes. And then the chapters started coming. First one, then another, and another. He sent drafts to all of us to get our vibes, and we usually responded very positively, except when we disagreed on specific details and facts, which was to be expected. I guess. True, we all grew up in the same home with the same people, but we each experienced events differently, and we remembered them differently as well. Memory plays funny tricks on people. And then one day, Billy invited us, his 3 siblings, to join in his venture and become contributors to his book. He felt the addition of our 3 voices a further dimension to the book, and I think he was right. At first I hesitated, but what when people the heart stayed, I began to write. And here we are, 2 years later, with what I consider a phenomenal. I Googled memoir to see what really constitutes a successful memoir. And here are 5 common traits for a successful memoir. 1, it entertains you. It is a memoirist's duty to make the memoir come alive. 2, it is relevant. It makes you think. Readers of memoirs want to relate to the story. It is authentic. It makes you feel that it is true. 4, it teaches you things. And lastly, it makes you remember your own lives. And I'm happy to say that I think that he succeeded in all these areas. It certainly is entertaining, to me at least, and obviously relevant. It is authentic and true, as authentic as any memories from 60 and 70 years ago can be. The reader can certainly learn a lot from the history and culture of the times, to say the least. And I think it definitely is a catalyst for readers to think about their. So I think you did a whammy job. I have to tell you all that many of my friends who read the book enjoyed it immensely. And even friends and acquaintances that did not know our family and those who did not grow up on the Lower East Side. So my last words to you are hello to you, and we await book 2.
Thank you very much, Shirley. And now we're going to move to the theme. Zali, you're up.
Okay, you guys hear me?
But we can't see you.
You can't see me?
No. Hine.
You hear me? You hear me? Okay,
Great.
okay. You know, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and if some of my comments sound similar to Hillel's, we did not compare notes beforehand. It's just, I think that we've been working so long together, we think alike. So if it sounds a little repetitious, you'll excuse me. Growing Up Tropper is a compilation of anecdotes written from 4 very, very different perspectives. While the book was being compiled, as Shugi said, as the 4 of us were trying to recollect history, some of us remember the same historical facts very differently. I remember so clearly Danielle and Dudi on the phone arguing over particular incidents that took place in RJJ, where each had a totally different take on what really happened. But that's what history is about. David wrote about his armory experiences. Danielle wrote about his relationship with the Rav. Shuki described her experiences in Camp Nara and in Israel, and I wrote about the challenges of the family business. So what's the tzad hashava? What's the common denominator, the glue that holds all of these anecdotes together to form one complete unit where somehow all the parts fit together? Dad and Mom were uncomplicated people, not highly educated, simple, but they were blessed with something that sometimes get lost among many of us with far greater education and quote unquote sophistication. They were blessed with an inordinate amount of seichel, or as Mom referred to it as horse sense. The simpler a machine, the parts there are to break, and the simpler the computer program, the more flexible it is. We all develop so differently. In a small family, you have modern Orthodox, Dati Leumi, Haredi, all respectful and loving of each other's lifestyles. We grew up with a tolerance that is often lacking in today's society. What held us together, though, was a value system that we respected and believed in that transcended the apparent external differences. We are 4 siblings, all so very different. None of us are of the same mold, yet we are so close. Despite the 6,000-mile distance between us, there is a warmth rarely found among siblings, and we owe it all to our parents. They let us do our thing, but somehow managed to connect the pieces with a glue that has even been passed down to the next generation. Sari and I have tremendous nachas from seeing our kids and grandkids relate to each other. And I see this among the other 3 branches of the family as well. My takeaway from the book, I was given only 5 minutes, so let me focus on only 2 points. 1, family, family, family. In secular society in America, this concept is lost. I can't speak for Israel, but I suspect it closely follows America. There's an old Yiddish adage, es kritzel sich, es yiddel sich, that the Jews always follow the Goyim. Children's great respect and reverence for parents is a value that keeps us together as one. It's a treasure. I was just talking to Dudi yesterday, how all 4 siblings moved from their homes of 30 or 40 years to be close to their children. in all 4 families. Most of our kids live within a 20-minute ride of our home. That is only because we all have great kids. You can only do that if the bond exists. And the second takeaway, you read the prologue and the epilogue of the book. The common thread, you have a husband, a wife, starting out with not much in terms of perceived potential and with little money, and in the span of a lifetime, they built up an army. As I mentioned above, simplicity, but consistency. They were honest to their values so that the value system passed on to what is now 5 generations. All good kids. At Mom's Levaya, Daniel described her as a ner tamid, persistent, day in, day out, doing what she felt was right, not looking to stand out. That is what made her legacy, and we are all proud members of Growing Up Tropper. We're all very proud of it, and hatzlacha to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Certain irony is that we could hear you and Hillel and Yo much better. And thanks to Zoom, we get you to participate. Not only that, actually, we heard you very clear. And now, I just invite Hillel.
I don't know if it's repeated or not, but I think the fact that a lot of repeating really shows that we all feel the same thing, and what we're saying really isolated voice. But I want to ask you, what makes Growing Up Tropper such a unique book? And even makes it unique the very fact that it exists. The 4 siblings, they're very different from one another. 2 continents get together, and they were able within a 1-year period to write a book, which they can agree on with no problem about the period that they grew up. Now we know about this. We basically when I ask myself, what do I want my kids to take home from this book? I want people to take home. What was important of the book is the values that are really underlying what the book tells. The first one, I think, is the value of the importance of stepping back, of retreating. Not getting you, well, not doing as Frank Sinatra used to sing, well, going my own way. Going my way. It's very different working together. People feeling that I have to make room for the other. They're making room because there are differences. Remember different. Remembering is a few things. First of all, we all saw it happen differently. We all address different points and remember different parts of the story. And we're all able to retrieve different parts of the story. You take all that into effect, it should be so tremendously different. There are different sensibilities. We want to talk about certain words, certain sentences that some of us don't more sensitive about. We were able to work them all out. I think that we have in the book is a kind of synergy that God alone witnessed it all. What was mentioned before, the 2 takes that Brother David and I have on RJJ. We went to RJJ 2 years apart. We were there RJJ most of the time together. And then read the 2 chapters. You can tell it's the same school, but you really see people who you also see different ways of going out in life. Most people do after they finish college. David has a chapter going into the army. Zali has, under his years of learning, is a typical thing yeshiva. It's a kind of everything is a yeshiva. The point is that very, very important that everyone steps back, makes room for other ways of moving. The second thing that's important is a certain giving and trust that exists among the siblings that underlies everything going on in the book, even though no one says it all. You know, Baruch Trubitsky, the CFO, once told he never saw partners working together like David and Solomon. He never saw it. He didn't think it could exist. But he said it was just each one was just giving, no one counted the pennies, whatever the other one needed, take it, do what you want, do what you have. And David took on giving in Israel a little over 50 years. For 45 of those years, living in America, ran all my finances. Not only the banks, IRS, everything involved. It was me alone, all right. Did it for Shimon and Shimon. He did it for my in-laws. He did it for Shimon's in-laws. He had a few more to give me who left. I come to his office, he opened the file, and there it was. Each one of us was doing it. Not the question. Yes. I was so badly about it. No one likes to be on the pinky. Thank God about 4 or 5 years ago, David needed something. I was in a unique position. That was one of the only people that could have gotten that. And I happily got it. And that was it. That's the way it worked. And you only do it when there's a great deal of trust and love between the people. And the last thing I have to say is what everyone said, we come back to it. Where did it all come from? Parents who had an incredible home, a home of chesed, where, by the way, I don't think the word chesed was ever mentioned. They never had a self-image of doing chesed. I always told my father and mother were people had a tremendous sense of responsibility, particularly for family. In my mother's Levaya, I also said my mother's Levaya is something else. I said, every family supposedly has a skeleton in the closet. Our home was the closet for the whole family. All the problems came into our home. This is the way it was. If there was a problem, Uncle Amy and Aunt Yetta. This is what happened. This is what we grew up. They didn't have to teach us. We learned growing up Trump, not just living in a Trump household, getting Trump values was really a way of life. Thank you, Diddy, because let me tell you, my brother used, and I want you to use it for a few times in your life, your status is before. Of course, to participate, we were reluctant at first, but really it was incredible because we really did everything. Not only initiated it, we did it, we navigated it, and we brought it to its completion in an incredibly short time. I thank him, and I thank everyone for coming.
Thank you, Camille. Just wanted to say one comment to our last speaker of the official part of the evening, and that is which is sometimes in these types of evenings, you'll usually have 2 or 3 speakers, and they will all speak for, say, 20 minutes or so. And when we thought to plan out this evening, understanding that things might become a little repetitious because of the nature of the behavior, but we thought it still was a very good idea, instead of having a few speakers like that, to have more speakers, but to speak for a shorter period of time, which is difficult. We made them focus on 5 minutes. So although you're getting apologies here, sorry I'm being repetitious, it's really my fault and our fault when we organized it, but that was also part of the intention, is that even though something may be seemingly repetitious, you're in this case also getting it from different points of view each time. I think each time, even listening, even when we're hearing certain themes maybe being repeated, but They're always being repeated from a different man. And now I'd like to invite my father, as I said, the last speaker.
Good evening, everyone. I begin by thanking you for putting together the event. I want to thank Sophie and Milan for working video. So quite kind of thank you to sport with. I have to thank COVID-19. Giving me the time, the isolation, put this all together. It must have happened. This is true. Everything that could be seen as I'm not going to use up my 5 minutes. Other than to say, the book is a book of 4 books. Each one of us, my life, city college, the army, business, but not my marriage. Neil's life. Why you going to study to be a doctor, reading the rub, becoming a rabbi, going to Israel to save a Christian. And faith. Shuggy also Brooklyn College, becoming a teacher both in Staten Island and in Israel, marrying Buddy, but not to be continued. And Zali. Zali for being a wonderful home. Becomes a person. And made the whole thing very good. So this is the story. It must be an autobiography. Again, in 4 voices. 4 voices that was one for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. I didn't mention, there's a certain fact, coffee and tea, the mic we're gonna leave on if the spirit should catch anybody who has to get out of the seat and would like to, you're welcome to share. I'll make everyone quiet for you. And we thank everybody who is on Zoom and joined us from home, all our speakers from home. We say goodbye to all those who want to say goodbye to us. And good night, everybody. Thank you. Really?
Who is that? Who's that?
Don't see you on the. I don't think this phone's working. Joseph? Shuggy saying hi to you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, yo. Bye.
Bye, yo. Hi, Ellie. Ellie, I'll talk to you later. Ellie,
Bye, Sherry.
talk to you later.
Good night, Ellie.
I'm going to tell you.
Bye, Bobby. Bye, Bobby.
הבנת?
אסתי.
הבנת?
Hi.
Hi, man.
Hi, Ellie, how are you?
I'm good.
All right, we're all saying goodbye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Alicia, bye. You want my help?
Bye, Alicia.
Good night, Chaim. How are you doing, Chaim? Good night.
Dessert?
Hey, give us some food.
Send it through.
Give us some food, Ellie. Give us some
Oh,
food.
Zevi, how you doing?
Ellie, how are you?
Good.
Ellie, are you in yeshiva now?
Not right now. I'm in the Adira.
Ah, very nice.
Ellie, go crash at Zevi for the night.
Good idea, huh?
We'll be happy to have you.
You'll need to sleep in the couch.
He's a tamam.
Hey, Amram.
Amram. Amram. Mazel tov.
Ellie, how you doing in Israel? How's the
Well,
gush?
it's great.
It's good?
Yeah.
That's everything, right? We love the gush.
Yeah.
Wow, good for you. Good for you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll come visit you one day. Maybe you'll come visit us.
And those were my plans through the year.
Super. Nice to see you.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Good
go
to
meet
see
Phil.
you. Okay.
Ellie, I wanted to
Hi,
say
Jim.
hello to you.
How you doing?
Enjoy. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. How's school? How's it working out?
It's working very well.
Good, very good. Okay. Maybe we'll get to see you soon. We'll see.
Okay.
Okay, you have a good night. Take
Okay.
care of yourself, okay?
Okay.
Well, bye-bye.
Bye. Good night, guys.